might touch on the death of genius Ginimbi Kadungure, who passed away recently. He has been the talk of town. If we manage to get one of the people who knows him very closely, and he has actually indicated that he might be joining the show. So stay tuned for these and other topics. But as of right now, let's take a look at this video showing the United States elections.
A history-making moment in the United States.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
The 56-year-old Harris thanking her running mate, President-elect Joe Biden, and voters for choosing her to become the first Black and Indian American woman to serve as U.S. Vice President.
We've had women at the Supreme Court. We have Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker of the House in Congress, but never in the executive branch have we had a woman vice president, and still not president. But not only that, but to have a woman of color, a woman from immigrant parents who came to this country for a better life.
The daughter of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, Harris grew up in Oakland, California. A mural of her now on the school she was bused to as a child as part of racial integration efforts.
She's broken so many glass ceilings for so many women.
A graduate of Howard University, an all-Black college in Washington, D.C., Harris became the first Black female San Francisco prosecutor beginning in 2004, and then California Attorney General in 2010.
Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up!
During Black Lives Matter protests this summer, some progressives complained Harris had been a much tougher prosecutor than she let on, took contradictory positions on the death penalty, and failed to hold police accountable for misconduct.
This is a moment in time that is requiring us to fight.
Harris first made history in California when she was elected to the U.S. Senate.
It's important that people see people in power that look like themselves.
Harris, who speaks often about her role as an aunt and a stepmother, is married to lawyer Doug Emhoff, who will now be the second gentleman, an entirely new position in White House history. And while the most important job for a vice president is to be ready to step in for the president if needed, analysts say Harris may also make use of her historic firsts.
She can be a stateswoman representing the United States, but I think she'll travel around the United States as well to show that symbolism of what she's doing.
A new global role in the White House, celebrated halfway around the world in her ancestral village in India. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Aiwa, tinokuchingamidzai nemufaro pano pachirongwa chedu paLivetalk, icho tinokupakurirai tiri muWashington musi uno wechitatu November 11, 2020 pamusoro pedenda reCovid-19 kana kuti coronavirus iro ratekeshera pasi rose.
Yes, marvelous. Welcome and thank you. And we are going to be joined, of course, by our guests in the next few minutes. And like you said, we are also looking at the high number of coronavirus cases that are being recorded across the world. Here in the United States, as we speak, we have more than 10 million people who have been who have tested positive. And of course, in Zimbabwe, the situation is also the same. Marvelous.
Yes, and the big topic, as you have noted there, is the U.S. elections that just ended. U.S. elections, where currently we see that Joe Biden of the Democrats actually got more electoral votes, making him at the moment being the president-elect. But we've also seen the U.S. president, Mr. Donald Trump, saying he is taking the issue to court to have some of the votes recounted. And there is recounting still going on. So it's still a contentious issue at the moment. And all eyes are now on the US to find out how this transition is going to take place as President-elect Joe Biden awaits to take reins on January 20th, which is the inauguration day.
Yes, marvelous. And fortunately, we have our first guest here, and she's. You can go ahead and.
Yes, welcome to the program, Mama. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Tell us where you are and also what the current mood is like there where you are. You are Zimbabwean based here in the United States.
Yes, so I'm in Reno, Nevada, and right now I'm not sure how to gauge the temperature. I'm not sure what's going on, except a conversation I had yesterday with a neighbor who is Republican, but is not happy with what's going on right now. So I don't know if that gives us any sense of anything, but that was insightful.
What was her concern being the Republican? We know, okay, the Democrats have a different.
Hello?
Hello,
Sorry.
what was her concern?
Her main concern was that as a Republican, they stand for the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And right now, everything that's happening is really against the Constitution. As much as, she believed in the president for her reasons, she's not so sure that was a good decision to actually back up the president again.
So from your own observation, and you've been following this election really very closely, what is supposed to be happening now?
So generally what happens now, this is the transition, right? So there's about 3 months from the time the presidency happens to inauguration. And it's very intentional. It's supposed to be the transfer of power where the new administration starts getting access to government stuff. They start doing clearances as well and start getting information on different departments. It's about 4,000 employees that are involved in this whole thing in different departments of different branches of the government. So generally, at this point, the president-elect would have been invited to the White House, and it's really to just show the country that, look, we're united in this. I lost. I'm moving on. This is the new president, and right now that has not happened.
So, from your observation, what do you see happening in the forthcoming days and weeks?
I think for me, what's the most nervous thing, if you've been not living under a rock in the past 4 years, is that the current president is very unpredictable. And he has been kind of given so much support. I think for me, the thing that was really surprising is how the Republicans are acting, the Republicans in power. So what makes me nervous are the changes that are happening and where they're happening, like in the defense secretary, and they're like 4 people that have been either fired or resigned. So that makes me nervous because of just the unknown and the unpredictability of the president.
Tombo upinda mushona kuti imi muri chizvarwa cheZimbabwe chiri kuNevada, zvii zvamuri kuona mushure mekunge mavhota makamirira kuona kuti zvichafamba sei, kwakamira sei ikoko?
Ezvinezvi tiri kungoona kuti zviri kunzi kuti president vedu havasi kubvuma kuti vakakundwa, saka tingori tiri mumhepo because tiri pakati paipa kuti hatisi kuziva kuti saka chiri kuitika. President elect Biden nezuro vakapa speech vakati tiri kumove on and everything, asi hatisi kunatsoziva kuti saka chii chichaitika kuzoona January, because I think pasara like 70 days, saka inguva refu.
Saka munguva yapfuura zvii zvingadai zvaitika panguva inoi? Tinoona kuti zvakamboitika hazvo kudhara, but kune vamwe vachangobva makore apfuura, zvii zvingadai zvaakuitika takamirira January 20?
Saka chinoitika, and tikatoona in history, iyi ndonguva yekutanga president achiramba could hand over power. Saka zvinoitika ndezvekuti pane anonzi ma-secret clearance anopiwa vanhu vanoshandira government, intensive background. Saka zvinotanga kuitika, vanotanga kucommunicate, kupanana zvinhu zviri classified, kutanga kuhand over information kune government iri kupinda neiri kubuda. Saka kutanga kupiwa ma-offices ekupinda. Saka zvinhu zvese izvozvo hazvisi kuitika. Pane department inonzi GSA inofana kusign off. Once sign off, pane ma-taxpayer funds anochengetwa ikoko regardless of ndiani anenge awina anotanga kubatsira kuti zvinhu zviitike saka munhu iye ari kuramba kusaina izvinezvi.
Saka imi munonzwa sei makamirira kuti muone kuti zvichadii?
Ini ndiri nervous, ndiri kutya, but handisi kunyatsoziva kuti chii chichaitika, saka ndozviri kuita kuti handina kugadzikana mushe.
Asika tinoona kuti muAmerica vane aya vanoti machecks and balances ekuti zvinhu zvigare zviri munzvimbo yekuti hazvizoenda kumawere. Imi munoona zvichizoshandiswa here kana pakamira sei?
You know, ndaiteerera munhu akataura something chakaita kuti ndifunge, akati ma-checks and balances aripo but akachengetwa nevanhu. Handiti saka it comes down kuvanhu ivavo, because nezviro zvakataurwa na-secretary of state, even zviri kuitwa newe kudepartment of defense, ndiwo kavacho vanofanira vachicheka, vanofanira vari vanhu variku, saka ndizvo zviri kuita kuti nditange kusagadzikana.
Pane pamataura muchitaura kuti muri kuona vemarepublican vachitsigira vachiripo mutungamiri wenyika vaDonald Trump. Munozoona toti vaBiden vagadzwa vemarepublican nyanya senate vachizoshanda here zvakanaka navaBiden, tichiona zviri kuitika parizvino?
Handifungi kudaro. To be honest, ndanga ndichifunga vaBiden vagara muSenate for 40 something years. Vane ishamwari na Mitch McConnell, right? Saka pekutanga ndainatsofunga, to be honest, until nezuro pandakanzwa Mitch McConnell achitaura, yanyaya yepower ezvinezvi, because pane maSenate aya kuGeorgia. Saka I think zvakaitika ndezvekuti namba yevanhu vakavhotera President Trump ndoyazoita kuti party iyi itye. Dai zvinzi vanhu havana kumuvhotera akawanda. Saka vari kuziva kuti vakangotaura zvisiri izvo zvisingafadze president, anogona kukanganisa zvichaitika kuna Georgia, because ndo zvichazopa vanhu power of the Senate for the next 2 years. Saka I think yatonyaya yepower kuti vada kugara mupower ati okay, whatever you want, takungoendawo nezvozvo. Ndo zvandinofunga.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Quickly we'll introduce our other guest, Mr. Mutuma Mawere in South Africa, and let me give him up. Yes, Mr. Mutuma Mawere is very familiar with American politics, and we are also going to be touching on another issue, a topical issue in Zimbabwe. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mawere.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Yes. Good morning. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Mr. Mawere, like I told you before this show, that we are going to be asking you about two topics. The first one is the U.S. elections. And what's your take on what's happening right now?
The people have spoken, and they are human beings. If you fail an exam, you are entitled to complain. But that's democracy. I guess there's a lot to be learned from the US example, that you don't have to be a developed nation to have a developed mind. We are all human, and you can be angry and at the outcome. So what we see is a dispute that is ageless. Any contestation produces different outcomes.
Yes, we will come back again to the U.S. elections, but for now, earlier in the day today, I think it was morning in Africa, I'm not sure what time it was, but you had a live stream where you were talking about the death of socialite, Zimbabwean socialite, Genius Kadungure, or Ginimbi as he is popularly known. You mentioned, I mean, we saw that you were talking to someone who seems to be very conversant with the car, the type of car in which Mr. Kadungure or Kinimbi had an accident. What's your take from what you heard from that expert, the guy who seemed to be talking so well about the Rolls Royce?
Yeah, his name is Bongani Sibeka. He's a producer of a TV show called Family Secret, and he was speaking his mind based on what he knows to be fact. But in relation to Genius, Genius is dead, and there was a car accident. I wasn't there, he wasn't there, and his expertise is only in relation to the car. Whether the car Rolls
Pfizer-BioNTech
Royce
vaccine
is
trial is
made
still
to
in its
burn.
early stages,
Sorry,
but scientists say
can you
results
hold
so
on a
far
second?
from
Can you hold
44,000
on a second?
volunteers
Let me
show the virus can be
deal with this
beaten.
technical
The vaccine is based.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
you can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so he was talking in relation to the car. What promise does a Rolls Royce give to the user? What experience in the event of an accident? What should happen, not what happened? So I took it to be just another view expressed by somebody who is familiar with the technology, with the equipment used to produce a Rolls Royce, and what he believes are unanswered questions.
So, what's your take from what you are saying? Do you think a Rolls Royce can have such an accident and explode into flames?
I have seen many things in life. For me to say God is not capable of creating surprises, there are many experts who are not God. So I take him to be giving just another view based on his mind, but not based on the reality of the accident. So I don't believe that any one of us is competent to know what it is that happened, what caused the death, what caused the car to burn. I cannot speak to that. And I'm
But
too small to know what I don't know.
But in as far as you know him, there've also been controversies on how he got his riches, how he got rich. And I remember at one time it was said that you had brought a case against him regarding some money or something. Can you tell us what was your beef with him?
No, I helped Genius when he came here. He had a gas business, Pioneer Gas. He would buy gas from South Africa, take it to Zimbabwe for sale. He would then convert the gas into cash, then come back to South Africa with dollars, not rands. When he arrived in South Africa, he would convert the dollars into rands at a cost and then be able to buy gas. Sometimes it will take time to find buyers of dollars because South Africa uses rands. So it may take 2-3 days while his truck is waiting to pick up another load. So he came to me, I got, this is the problem that I'm facing. So I said, okay, why don't you talk to your suppliers to give you a credit line so that on a weekly basis, you then take the gas, rush back, sell, come back. And he says they are not willing to give any credit for a customer in Zimbabwe. And they are not willing to take the Zimbabwe risk. So then I said, let's go together to meet your suppliers. We went together. I said, no, I will guarantee that he pays. And when he brings the gas, when he gets the gas, he converts into cash, brings the cash. So I said, if there's anything wrong, I will sign surety on his behalf. They said, no, we have no problem with that. But first, we must have a trading history with you. So I gave them a company. They said, why don't you start buying yourself? Then we supply to Genius and see how it goes. Then we can then extend it to a longer term relationship. Because now we know Genius has got a big brother in South Africa. And that's what happened. So we then left with no agreement, but only the agreement to pay for the gas. So I said, Genius, if I give you money, then I give you money in South Africa in rands. You take the gas in Zimbabwe. If you disappear with the gas, how do I make sure that you bring back the money to buy new gas? Then I said, okay, how much do you make per load of gas? Says if it's full, I make about 40,000 rand per trip. Then I said, okay, that's fine. Let's do it this way. I get 15,000, you get 25,000 because it's your business. But the gas is not yours. When
So,
you
in
gas,
short, Mr. Mawere, can we say that Mr. Katungure was a genius, as his name implies? I mean, he was a straight person. He never, because people are coming up with all sorts of theories. Do you think, from what your dealings with him, he managed to make all those riches, all those millions?
I can't talk about millions, I don't know. All I can tell you is my experience on this, which resulted in me reporting the matter to the police, and the police did bring him to the police station. We met there at Sandton police station, and he admitted he owed money, but he was saying that it was a loan instead of the arrangement that we'd agreed to. That's I
Saka
can.
ipapo vamawere ndombokubatai muromo kuti zvakazofamba sei uyezve muchamurangarira sei Genius Kadunguri.
Then the next day, I then called him, and no, he called me to say, okay, I'm willing to pay, but I'm willing to pay on the basis of the amount that you initially gave me. I said, I never gave you a loan, otherwise I'll take security on it. What I did was to buy gas so that you take it to Zimbabwe, sell it, and you don't have any investment in the gas. You only have an investment in the logistics to take the gas to Zimbabwe. That money was never paid back.
Mombotaura henyu neshona kuti zvakazofamba sei muchingoita muchidimba uyezve muchamurangarira sei.
No, mari haina kuzouya, and that ndozvakaitika. So akafa mari isina kuuya.
Saka muchamurangarira sei.
The only thing is what he did, many people could not do. The reason I invested in him, zvazvichiita kuti anga ane promise and anga achisenza nesimba. I didn't know you much, but from the little that I knew, anga ari munhu anosenza.
Aiwa, pakanaka.
Yeah.
Tombodzokera kusarudzo dzemuno muAmerica tichiona mamiriro zvakaita pari zvino. Ikoko kuAfrica vanhu vari kuona sei zvinhu zviri kuitika muno muAmerica? Vari kuti chii?
Zvakasiyana siyana because maonero akasiyana. Ndingokwanisa kutaura nezvandinoziva. Zvandinoziva ndizvokuti ma-elections, like an exam, vanhu vari kutonakidzwa. Vamwe vanonakidzwa kuti kana zvichiita kuAmerica zvinokwanisa kuitika everywhere in the world. Ma-lessons acho, they are not shared zvawo. Saka zvamutipeta izvozvi kutoona the same thing, like a glass inenge iri half full, vamwe vachiri half empty. But it's good kuti vanhu vanotsamwisana, munhu anotwita achiwana mamillions emavhoti, vanhu vachipedza election vachiti handei koti, tikapedzerana koti nyaya yaperawo. Zvese mitemo yavo. And even ukaruza, there is another way yokufighta kusvika wasvika kwaurida kuenda.
Thank you so much,
So,
Nawere. Please
okay,
do
thanks.
stay on the line. We are going to take a short break and watch the video on the new vaccine on coronavirus that is promising, and they're saying it should be available in the next couple of months for the ordinary people. And of course, for some people, it will be available pretty soon. So let's listen to this.
Based on new so-called mRNA technology and is yet to be approved by regulators. Even if it's fast-tracked, there are other challenges.
There are big manufacturing challenges. There are logistics challenges. This vaccine needs to be stored at minus 80 degrees Celsius.
That's more feasible in richer nations. But in poorer countries, rolling out a vaccination program won't be easy. At this clinic in Burkina Faso, the fridge regularly breaks down, forcing staff to throw away the medicines inside. The United Nations says health systems that serve 2/3 of the world's population don't have adequate refrigeration facilities.
So if today we had to vaccinate against the coronavirus, for example, we would need a lot more refrigerators to keep the vaccines. We don't have these fridges.
Then there's the problem of power.
The hot climate means that the cooling devices are more important and have to work harder. It's a lack of electricity. It's developing economy. So if you look in a number of these markets, you can find areas countries where perhaps 30-40% of the health centres don't have access to electricity.
The United Nations Children's Fund spent $85 million in 2019 on refrigeration equipment, mostly solar-powered refrigerators in Africa and Asia. It's also stockpiling syringes and developing cold chain storage and transportation ahead of any vaccine approval. But in many countries, scientists say the health infrastructure simply doesn't exist to roll out any rapid coronavirus inoculation program. An added challenge is getting people to clinics or visiting them in the community and persuading them the vaccine is safe. The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine requires 2 doses per person. Then there's the danger of vaccine nationalism, the concern that rich countries buy up all the vaccines for their own populations. Over 150 countries have signed up to a global facility called COVAX to try to ensure equitable distribution.
With the goal being to help produce 2 billion doses of various COVID vaccines that could be distributed to all of these countries around the world by the end of 2021.
Scientists say other coronavirus vaccines currently in trials also could prove effective, boosting hopes of large-scale inoculation programs. But they warn until such programs are rolled out, it's vital that governments and individuals continue to try to suppress the spread of the virus as infection rates continue to soar. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
That there is a bit of good news. We have seen how this coronavirus has devastated countries throughout the world. But that exactly is good news for sure, Marvelous.
Aiwapo tiri kunzwa panyaya yemushonga mutsva kana kuti nhomba idzva panyaya yeCovid-19 tichiona kuti chirwere ichi chatekeshera pasi rose uyezve chiri kuwanikwa icho chichiramba chichiuraya vanhu vakawanda. Takaona zvakare nyaya iyoyi yedenda reCovid-19 ichipisa pasarudzo idzodzi dzemuAmerica kuti maRepublicans vangabata sei nyaya iyoyi yedenda reCovid-19 ukuwo maDemocrats vari kuwanikwa ivo vachitungamirirwa navaJoe Biden avo vava president elect vachitaurawo kuti ivo vaizobatawo sei denda irori reCovid-19 uyezve tikaona vachitotaura ivo kuti vatori nehwaro hwekuti vachingobva kupinda muhofisi vachabva vawanikwa vachiuya nechirongwa. Tombodzokera kwauri Hungwe, uri kuona sei? Tiri kuona vaJoe Biden vakataura ivo kuti vatori nehwaro hwekuti vachatanga sei kugadzirisa zvinhu munyika ino yeAmerica. Zvizvo ungada kuona ivo zvichitanga kugadziriswa kana vachinge vazotora matongo?
Ndinotanga chii ndakafara ndichiona vakatoisa team him a doctor, and she, I think 12 or 13 people. Saka izvo zvakatondirakidza kuti vari kuitora nyaya iyi serious. And chikuru panga kana pakutaura nyaya yevaccine inenge yanyaya yekuti saka vaccine iyi ichasvika sei kuvanhu. Saka vakakwanisa kugadzirisa ipapo kuti vanhu vanokwanisa kuzoiwana, and vakati zvakare inenge iri free kuiwana. I think zviri important chinhu chakakosha because vanhu vanenge ikanyanyodhura vamwe havazokwanisa kuiwana, saka at least ikaita free and vakaisa pamalogistics ekuti isvike kuvanhu. Saka ndo zvandakatarisira.
Zvimwe zvizvo ungati iwe tinoona vazhinji vanga vari kuchema panyaya yeupfumi, ungati panyaya iyoyi?
Saka iyoyi nyaya pane pavakapa 1200 machecks at 1200 per family or something. Saka panga pakazombonzi pachaitwa futi imwe round yekutumira vanhu mari, hazvina kuzoita. Saka handisi kuziva manje kuti zvichaitwa here because iSenate manje ipapo yakamisa izvinezvi. And Senate President-elect Biden havasati havana control over that izvinezvi. Saka hopefully tenchiona kuti kuchapiwa chinhu here kubva kuSenate kana kuti tenta kuzomirira kuona kuti chinoitika January 5th kuGeorgia. And then iyo pavanozopinda muna January 20th. Kana vapinda, I hope kuti vanokwanisa kutumira vanhu machek kana zvisati zvatoitwa.
Thank you. Chris.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you please do stay on the line, Miss Hungwe, who will be coming back to you shortly. For now, Marvelous, we have another guest. Let me make sure I can pull him up. We'll continue and then I'll pull him up later. But he's a member of the EFF Zimbabwe. He's going to be joining us shortly. But Mr. Mawere, what do you make of the way that the elections were conducted? Because we see this is like not the first time, of course, that there have been disputes. But this time, it sounds a bit familiar, like it's Zimbabwe that we're talking about.
No, it's different people, different circumstances. You can't compare oil and water. Surely you can look at what is at stake and how the process was conducted and how the outcome there is reflects the division in America. People are divided. And when people are divided, it shows. You can't hide it. But what are they divided about?
Yes, I think that's what I wanted to come in there, Mr. Mawere, to say what exactly from what you are seeing, and you lived in America before, what are they divided about?
About ideas that matter. There are ideas that matter when they are properly contextualized. America is in a transition. There are less Caucasians. The future of America is in the balance. When you look at Trump, he's just speaking on behalf of other people who have a different take on what America's soul should be. So there are different ideas, and whether America should be great with Latinos or Black people, Asian people in government, when the people who believe in democracy, in the founding values of America, see that in a clash of civilizations. They see Black people as uncivilized. They see white people as civilized.
I think tombokubatai ipapo vaMawere kuti imi munoona kunge America iri kunyanyonetsana papi chaipo, chii chiri kunyanyonetsa semaonero enyu makambogara muno muAmerica?
It's a different viewpoint. There are people who see America as a glass that is half full. There are people who see America as a glass that is half empty. There are some people who are saying, let's make America great again. because it wasn't great with Barack Obama being in the White House. Can you imagine Barack Hussein Obama being the president of America, who is a Kenyan, according to them? So, can you see the difference of opinion that if it's America and America belongs to the best of all angels, all civilizations, can you imagine what it means to those who are faithful to that promise, seeing a black man in a White House?
Saka muri kuti imi tiri kunetsa ndezvemarudzi here?
Zvamarudzi zviri values. They are saying munhu mutema civilization yake cannot be civilized. Vamwe. Saka don't trust a black man in the White House. Something will go wrong, including Obamacare. It's about using public resources to extend the life of people who are not even meant to live in America. Immigration, there are people coming into America and coming to America thinking they're coming to a better country, better angels, better values. Yet the reality is something else.
I want to not tell.
So there is a real divide in America.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mawere. Please do stay on the line. We are joined, like I said, by Mr. Balule. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good evening to all your viewers in Zimbabwe. My name is Siposenkosi Machokomola Balule. I am the Secretary General of EFF Zimbabwe.
Yes, so Mr. Balule, what's your take on the elections in the United States? We have seen elections coming and going every 4 years, but this election has been different because first of all, we had this coronavirus, and then later on, we have the coronavirus being part of the election because it was used in campaigns. But anyway, that is water under the bridge. We are now looking at the possibility of a president saying he's not leaving office, just like here in Africa and elsewhere. What's your take on
that? Firstly, this was a hotly contested election on the grounds of ideological differences between the Democrats and the Republicans. The elections have come and gone, and a result has been declared. What we have to note here is that the media, as it is the tradition in America, has actually called the election, but the results have not been certified. As I understand, there is a process in America, a legal process that is still going on, and which will eventually certify the results. Now, the fundamental point here is that for the first time, maybe not the first time, but maybe after a century or so, we have seen an American president who is refusing to accept defeat, who is refusing to concede. I understand this happened many, many years ago in the 1800s. This is embarrassing for America. The world is watching. The world is watching how an American president is doing something which many people will think is unthinkable for an American president to refuse to concede. Obviously, these elections were free and fair in many respects because people were able to campaign freely, something that we don't see in many African countries, certainly not in Zimbabwe. And what we learn from this, from the perspective of us as Zimbabweans, is that we shouldn't really be celebrating, thinking that there is, sort of like a situation which will break America. What we should be looking at is that America is a country with its internal problems, just like many countries around the world, and certainly us in Zimbabwe, we have bigger problems when it comes to conducting fair, credible elections. We cannot compare ourselves with the Americans. I think the Americans will resolve this using the law. The law is supreme in America. It's not the case in Zimbabwe because the law is used selectively in Zimbabwe. And those who are in government in a country like Zimbabwe, they call all the shots. In America, it's not the case. The president, the sitting president in America, will, in the end, have to abide by the dictates of the law.
Ngamafitshane ngolimi lwesindebele ungathini wena ngalokhu okwenzakalayo lapho?
Okwenzakalayo e-America ngalesi sikhathi ngemva kokhetho, ukhetho lube lukhanya lukhululekile nje, abantu bekhululekile. Abantu be-America sebekhethile abafuna ebe ngumongameli. Zibe zindala zombili, kodwa ke ekugcineni uBiden kuthiwa uwinile. uBiden kuthiwa uwinile loba nje impumela yalolu hlelo lokhetho ungakafakwa ngokugcotshwa komthetho, kodwa ke sokusobala ukuthi nguye owinileyo. uPresident Trump uyala ukuvuma ukuthi yena udliwe. Lokhu ke abantu abaningi sikubona thina kuyinto eyangisayo kakhulu ngoba iAmerica ilokhu uzikhukhumeza kakhulu ekutheni yona yiyo ekumele ikhangelwe ngumhlaba wonke ukuthi iyenza kanjani izinto zedemocracy lezinto zohlelo lokukhetha ababusi bayo. Manje lokhu sokutshengise ukuthi hayi iAmerica layo ile inhlupho zayo, ilama problems zayo layo. So thina njengabantu abavele singama-Africans sokumele lathi sibone ukuthi hayi sokumele sibe leyethu indlela lathi yokukhangela ukuthi sikhangela kanjani uhlelo lwethu olwama-elections, singabe silokhu silandela okwabanye okukhanya lakho kungayisikho ukuthi kumbe ku-perfect. Kumele thina silandele okwethu, siqinise ama-institutions ethu e-Africa, siqinise ama-institutions ethu eZimbabwe ukuze lathi nxa sisiba lohlelo lokukhetha ababusi bethu sibe lesiqiniseko sethu ukuthi thina siyenza okuyikho okuyimpumela efunwa ngabantu njalo kuzahlonitshwa abantu. Into eqhakathekileyo emqoka kithi eZimbabwe ukuthi abantu kumele behlonitshwe. Nxa abantu bekhetha ababusi babo kumele kuhlonitshwe ukuthi abantu lokho abakukhethileyo yikho abazakuthola, hatshi ukuthi kube nababusi abaqhwagayo beqhwaga ukhetho, beqhwaga amandla ukuthi ngubani okumele ebuse.
Hayi kuyezwakala, ungabamba nje kancane sithatha abanye abahlonishwa bethu. Yes, that was the views there from Mr. Balule about the elections right here in the United States. Time is not on our side, we're just about to go, but before we do that, Mr. Mawere, what is your final word on the issue of Mr. Gadungure Kinimbi? Would you say he is someone who can be a role model to our children when they look up to him and say, I want to have all those cars and stuff like that, that Mr. Kinimbi was wearing, even his clothes, I understand he was wearing a t-shirt that cost about $2,000 or something like that. Is that what the young people of Zimbabwe can look up to?
Yeah, certainly. I think he does provide some inspiration, and there are many people who look up to him. And you can't dismiss somebody where there's no hope, where there's hopelessness. What he has been able to accomplish in such a short period of time, it defies the logic. There are many young people who cannot speak to that. There are many graduates, many people who have traveled far and cannot. So when you bury, even Caesar, when he was buried, Mark Antony said, "We have come bury Caesar, not to praise him, because the evil that you do lives on, but the good, some people never talk about it. So it's a time to celebrate his life. And there are many lives that are passed on. Even me, I was not angry with him, because he did, even when he went to Botswana, I helped him even to say, set up in South Africa so that you control your logistics chain. And he did everything I advised him. It's not the money only, it's ideas that matter. And he did. And I said, you have to be a person who is regional, because the gas is not made in Zimbabwe. You have to buy it somewhere in a country that you are not going to sell the gas. So you are going to export and get US dollars. So I can say there are very few people who listen. And he did listen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ungwe. Miss, I mean, Miss
Madame
Mawere,
Ungwe.
Miss Ungwe, what's your take on this Phineas Ilimbi thing? We understand that, he was one of the richest people in Zimbabwe, and very young at that. And also, of course, there are lots of controversies about him. What's your take on him?
So I have a confession. I was not familiar until my husband was telling me, so I don't know.
But what's your
Yeah.
take on this issue of, they call them socialites. I've seen this word used mostly in Zimbabwe, where you have young people who have lots of money, and they go out in partying almost every other weekend. What's your take on that? If you have heard of that, we have one here, a Zimbabwean socialite. What's his name, Marvelous?
I think maybe Miss Ungwe might not be familiar because she had come here for the election. So you might be putting her on a spot. But anyway, maybe to just round off, I can just ask her that, moving forward, we know a lot of women have been really excited about having Kamala Harris as the VP for Biden. What's your take as, the transition carries on?
You know what? I'm so excited about Kamala being in presidency, but I'm also very sad that 55% of white women voted for Trump. So I'm in that space where I'm like, wow, really? It's like 3% more than 2016. So after all those 4 years, us as women are still supporting this. So I have that feeling of excitement and hope, but I'm also really saddened by that. And I was looking at the stats, and 57% of white people voted for Trump. So I know I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful, I'm excited that Kamala is there because representation is very important. But I'm really also kind of surprised. I didn't think women specifically would be voting for the current president again in such big numbers. But 91% of African American voted for Biden, so I'm hopeful.
Kwamuri vamawere kuafrica vanhu vari kutarisa here kuti tichange tiri kuona mutevedzeri wemutungamiri wenyika mutsva ari kuuya ari mudzimai, vanhu vari kuzvitambira sei?
Vamwe vanozvitambira, but I got 2 ears and nenzeve mbiri. So zvandinozwa, it may not be representative. Maybe you can just ask what I think.
What you think. Any change, exactly.
Any change is a good change. Diversity is power, is strength. And it's not the woman in the ideas, but it's a person who is different from what we are accustomed to. So when you have so many people, more than 300 million people, for the first time you have a vice president who is a woman. We are not looking for women ideas or women foolishness or smartness,
Okay.
but
Okay.
we're just looking for a human being to occupy the office, the public office.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a public office, it belongs to the people. You don't elect a genius, you elect one of you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't
So
want the
what do you
saint
make,
to a pope.
Mr. Mawere? What can you say are the lessons that Zimbabweans can learn from these elections?
To take ownership that it's your country, that the president is not meant to be a genius, is meant to be public property, is meant to be a person of public trust. And it is the people who produce the outcomes. And if they say, this is, let's go left, just play along. Don't be too smart. Don't pretend the office of the president is yours or it was meant to be yours. Don't have smart ideas over people's aspirations. Because there are many people who are not where they are born, yet they are able to accomplish, to unlock their full potential. There are many people in Zimbabwe who look back after 40 years of so-called independence and find there's no independence, there's dependence, hopelessness. Yet other people in Zimbabwe are doing well. So we are challenged by America. The founding fathers, when they said we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men, including women, are created equal
Mm-hmm.
and endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They are not given on the basis of gender. There is nothing that makes a woman less human than a person who calls themselves a man. So we must learn to rise above the artificial differences
Mm-hmm.
that makes us different
Yeah,
and
thank you
see
so
that.
much.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks.
so much, Mr. Mawere. Can you let's talk to Ms. Hungwe, Madame Hungwe. I'm sure, like you were following the elections, you saw there were debates, which unfortunately is a culture which we don't have. Do you think that these debates give us a clear picture of leaders, and we should emulate them and also make sure from council level up to presidential level we have them in Zimbabwe? What's your take on that?
Yes, actually, I do. I really wish in Zimbabwe we had the opportunity to have the candidates tell us what they're bringing to the table. How are you going to represent me so I can make an informed decision of whether to vote for you or not? And like you said, starting from the bottom, because these people make decisions that affect our lives, whether we vote or not. But in Zimbabwe, we don't get that opportunity, right? It's more like you pledge allegiance to the party. It doesn't matter who is running. It's like, okay, I'm for this party, so whatever they stand for. And I am one of those people that I wouldn't vote for someone because they're Democrat or Republican. I want to know, what is your past? Am I voting for my interests, right? So I have voted both ways, whether it's presidential, well, not presidential, but in regards to like governors, senators, congressmen, councilmen, school boards, all that. I look at the candidate, I do research, I look at the judges. Is this for my interest? How would this impact my son who happens to be Black, right? I look at all those things. I don't care what party you're affiliated with, because after all is said, party are people. So you never really want to pledge allegiance to human beings, because people will be people. So I wish in Zimbabwe, to answer your question, people were given that opportunity, right? It would be so informative to just know, where do you stand on this issue? What is your view on this? Then I, as an individual, can then decide for myself, do I align with this person or not? But that's not the reality at this point.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mtuma Mawere, would you like to see Mr. Nelson Chamisa going head to head with the president, Mr. Mnangagwa? What?
I think that's one problem that I have with Ms. Hungwe. A president is never meant to debate a future that is not part of them. There is no one who can lead you to where they have not been. Talk is cheap. We are the owners of the outcomes that we want. And as individuals, it's not what you say about, you can't promise me a future that you already don't have. We all walk on untrodden ground, president or no president, we walk on the same earth. For me to wait for somebody to debate and tell me about dreams or ideas that they have about the future that I have to work for. Faith without work is dead. Talk without work is dead. So these guys can be talking heads, debate as much as they want, but we must own the republic in between elections. There are people who are right now wearing wrong suits, waiting to be president. Imagine you have just finished another one in 2018. Somebody says, I didn't lose, I won. And he keeps on saying, I'm an alternative, instead of saying, how do I become a perfect citizen without being a president? How many people think a president is a little god? How many people despise presidents for abusing public resources, yet encourage them to be smart? How can somebody smart be smart after an election? Either a fool before the election and remain a fool after the election. How can you say Nunzi?
Like I said, we are running out of time, Mr.
Okay.
Mawere. Your final word.
My final word is that Nyama, I invite Nunzi. Nunzi zinouya pane nyama. But if the people of Zimbabwe are foolish enough to trust any man in State House to deliver a promise, then nobody can help. If somebody expects debates to produce outcomes, then you keep on talking.
Aiwa, mashoko makukutu asiregatinzwe misungwe neshona mungotaurawo zvamuri kutarisira imi sechizvarwa chezimbabwe chiri muno panguva inotevera after my elections aya.
Saka ndiri kutarisira kuti tichakwanisa kupedza kuenda kuinauguration zvakanaka. I really believe that will happen because the institutions are strong. My concern is the damage that's going to happen between now and then, right? President vachabuda izvo ndizvo zvichaitika because of how it is kugadzirwa kwazvakaita, but damage ichaitwa nemisinformation, distrust of the process. The question becomes, how long will it take to fix that? Because the thing that distinguishes America from most of the world are the constitutions, are the institutions, and the independence of the institutions, and the checks and balances, which we've seen for the past 4 years. The line has been blurred, right? It's just been all dismantled and all kinds of things. After all is said and done, again to rebuild and strengthen our constitution.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We had a lovely show. Thank you so much for joining us. Marvelous.
Thank you to Mwahungwe, who's coming all the way from Nevada. Tinokutendai nava mutumwa Mawere vari kuSouth Africa. Tinokutendai kunge manga muri nesu pano pachirongwa chedu. Ini ndini Marvelous Mhlanganya huye ndiri muWashington ndichiti ngatisanganei zvakare mangwana pa Let's Talk ngatikurukurei.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm Chris Gande wishing you a very good night until we meet sometime, same time on this station. A very good night, Zimbabwe.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.